thanks for being here, you guys. I'm glad you're here and not off GTLing. Okay, cool. So upon entering high school, past me said, filter what you're gonna say. Keep it clean, no foul language, no slang. Try to keep it clean and keep it cool. But the present me doesn't quite agree with past me, and I'm not so sure about that. So let's go through the motions of it. So Jonathan Green, a slang lexicographer, once said, "Slang is the pleasurable principle. It invokes in it language, lets us get it out there. It has no morals, it has no party, it has no religion, it's just in it for the kicks." Now what I love most about it is that it's ourselves at our most human, not at our best, but at our most real. Slang is, okay. Slang is strange, a language within a language, often stemming from other languages. Slang continues to confuse me, and especially surprise me when I use it. YOLO? In institutions of education, yup. Proper use of the word YOLO, guys, take note. In institutions of education, there seems to be this kind of trend where we're trying to phase out slang. And I feel like what it actually does, it makes it more popular. And maybe it has to do with confusing the authorities in these wondrous teenage years, but let's get a little bit sophisticated about language and consider that language and slang are a little bit more existential. Now, speech lacks the permanence and authority that writing warrants. While writing needs to be artificially taught, language through speech is picked up naturally, and speech as a result serves as the primary form of communication, especially in the cases where languages are not written down. Now, what makes language a little bit interesting is that it makes divisions where they don't actually exist. It creates a kind of fuzziness, blurring the literal comprehensions of words. Now, let's take the words hill and mountain. Now, words can't really decipher where a hill becomes a mountain, but thankfully, because words are polysemic, they express several meanings. To determine what they mean, they need to be used in relation to other words. And that's not to say that these words isolated lack meaning, rather that they hold the potential of too many meanings. Now here's where slang gets useful, or more useful, I should say. Slang often emerges when a word is used differently, and slang simply serves as a new way of meaning. Slang is broken down and more commonly looked at as just the words. The words are the bricks that together, when placed, they build us a foundation of how we mean. Okay. There's a sort of interesting consideration to make when talking about the productivity of language and discussing language as a human construct. There seems to be evidence of language when it's productive. And when we can mess around with language to make it communicate what we want it to say for us. It's our ability to create that allows us to take our ideas through experiences told and lived and connect them to the world in a more communicable way. And slang helps us do that. One of the most beautiful things about language, and I really, really adore this, is that if we don't have a way of saying something, we'll make one up. The other evidence of language exists when it presents us with duality of structure. Individual letters don't necessarily hold any assigned meaning, but they still contribute to structure, especially when assembled together as words. It's our ability to create that allows us to be human. Just take a second and think about any selection or collection of books that you've ever read in the English language. Just think about how incredible it is that they've all been written with the same 26 letters, recycled over and over. Kind of great. Now, slang serves as an important function in the evolution of language. It fosters the human ability to create. But here's when we have to make a bit of a clarification, that humans are in fact creating. So that is, composing together a medium that is new and unseen, and it may reuse elements from our surroundings, but it's still composed together. Now, I'm fascinated by slang terms, mostly because I don't understand a lot of them, but also because slang makes sense as a social cue. As social beings on a subconscious level, we all want to be able to interact well with one another, and slang accomplishes this in 2 key ways. Anyone here remember the lovely movie Mean Girls? You remember when... Okay, yeah, exactly, there you go. So when Gretchen tries to introduce the word fetch, it's a really good example of how slang kind of works. We are creating a code, which then forms a sense of secrecy. The nature of secrecy demands that a sense of trust is formed and developed between the 2 parties. This increases the chances of interacting well with one another and sustainably. Slang also allows us to exercise originality in what is the baseline of conventional interactions, language. Now, slang helps us understand a new context for words. It further develops the identity of language as polysemic, breathing a new life into some of these words. And let's quickly take a look at this chart. So here, the words walk, march, run, limp correspond with the words natural, hurried, forward, 1 foot always on the ground, where the positive sign shows a positive correlation with the word on the left. Now let's add another word to this, booking it. So mentally filling that out, it would end up being negative, positive, positive, negative, unlike any of the other words on this chart. There's great creative value in exercising slang. We're not lazing around with slang. Rather, we're engaging our brains in a creative process where we place these words into our vocabulary and actually expand language. It's an incomprehensible escape from the rigid nature of everyday language, where every word carries with it a connotation, often a product of misguided indoctrination. We become cautious, consciously or otherwise, about what we say, how we say it, and soon filter after filter starts to water down what we want to say, contorting our message. Language waters down, and we let it down. Language is dynamic. When it's not evolving, it's decaying, and that's pretty fetch, I'd say. We have lots to fear for the loss of language. Learning from language allows us to brush the surface of beginning to comprehend the people that use the language. A loss of language would be a loss of diversity and a loss of humanity. But let's take another reflective moment here. How existential does language sound about now? That it too is an approach that emphasizes its existence as a free agent, shaping its own development through what it makes of itself. We are the language as it knows itself. That's the beauty of human construct. Swag? Thanks, you guys.